I'll give you one example. This is very practical, by the way, this idea of virtue. So again, not just, hey, think good thoughts, and then over here we'll really be practicing. One of my problems with the kneeling down and praying after a game is that it has nothing to do with during the game. So I can bite you, poke your eyes out, and curse at you during the game, and then afterwards we're all going to kneel down or hold hands. Joseph, at the end of that game, they blew them out. They're all going down shaking hands. Everybody that lost is depressed. Everybody that won is like not even looking at the person they're shaking hands with. What is this fake, hypocritical, thing of shaking hands in sign of sportsmanship? If you're going to shake somebody's hand, shake their hand firmly, look them in the eye, and say something. Don't get on the eye. What is that? Well, I was working with, you may have noticed I'm tall. I'm 6'8". I was blessed with some good athletic ability. I also have a pretty good arm. And so part of my working with professional athletes, I'd work with a lot of wide receivers. And I can throw a ball pretty fast and pretty hard. Not as I couldn't go out in a field and run a game like a quarterback can, but I certainly have an arm that was equivalent to, let's say, some quarterbacks. And so I'd work with these wide receivers. And I won't go through how I do sports performance now, because that's another whole day too. But in working with wide receiver, they'd run out, run a route, throw them a ball, and eventually they drop one. And as they drop it, they go, I said, what? And they look at me and they go, what? I said, what did you say? I dropped the ball. I said, oh, I know you dropped the ball. What did you say? And they said, well, I said, now this is a Christian athlete I was working with at the time. I said, thank you, Jesus. And he kind of looks at me like I hit him over the head with a board, what? I said, thank you, Jesus, right? And he goes, what do you mean? I dropped the ball. I said, I know, you're thankful in all things, though, aren't you? He said, yeah. I said, so thank you, Jesus, right? And he goes, thank you, Jesus. So he walks back, and so now you might say, why am I doing that to start with? Well, one is gratitude. He is thankful in all things, okay? 2, pure performance. He wants to catch a ball better, doesn't he? Any of you have played golf in this room, maybe? Okay? After you hit a ball into the woods, is your thing, thank you, Jesus? I don't think so. You're ready to break your club, you're cursing, you're whatever, right? Wait a second. What does that have to do with hitting the ball? What does that have to do with catching the ball? Nothing. The way to perfect skill is by putting 100% of your skills, talents, and abilities into that present moment, into the activity. What does it actually take to catch a ball? I got to be able to see a ball, feel my body. If I'm doing those 2 things, put the whole 100% into them, I'm going to catch the ball most likely. To the degree I'm not doing that, I'm probably not going to catch the ball. So by saying thank you, Jesus, about dropping the ball, it does 2 things. One is it gives thanks. It's gratitude. It's a good virtue. Secondly, from a performance standpoint, it actually frees me up. I get rid of the garbage. I can now focus on what actually just happened. There's a reason I dropped the ball. It's not because I can't catch. This is a world-class receiver. He can catch. If he drops the ball, it's not because he can't catch. He dropped the ball because he doesn't know why he dropped it. Maybe he didn't see it all the way into his hands. Maybe he didn't have energy greater than the ball coming into his hands. It could be a host of things. But if he's caught up in all the garbage about that it fell on the ground and everything else, he's missing that moment. And it only lasts for a few seconds. By the time you come back, you don't even know why you look. Guess what's going to happen? You're going to drop it again. Probably for the same reason and not even know it. So now he goes after the second ball. 3rd ball, 5th ball, catches up, drops another ball. And he stops. And then he kind of looks back at me. And I said, and he goes, thank you, Jesus. I said, good. Come on back. Okay, now what was that? What did you say? Then he tells me what it was that he did. I said, perfect, that was exactly it. Comes back. We do this for a while. It's really funny. After a day of even just doing this with him, he drops a ball. Thank you, Jesus. He's coming back. He's fired up and he actually means it. Now, it sounds funny, but it's really true. And there we are actually doing something physical. And that's very much what sports psychology is about, what the spiritual part's about. It's kind of making the intangible tangible. Physical things help us to do that. We are physical creatures. We have a physical being to deal with. And if we're not in control of it, we're in big trouble. So let me just jump down. Temperance. Everybody thinks of temperance. Oh, what are we, some kind of, Victorian, Puritan kind of, what's going on with this temperance thing? Temperance is just balance. The virtues are about balance. That's all they are. So under temperance, you have virtues like sobriety, abstinence, chastity, and you have even those connected to those, which would be like continence, humility, meekness, modesty. Meekness. Ask a pro hockey player, should he be meek? He'll look at you like you're out of your mind. Well, what's meekness about? It's actually, the right, not using inordinate anger, not being out of control. That's probably a good thing for a hockey player, actually. Save your team a couple of penalties. You might actually, change the course of a game. But we don't even know the words because we don't use the words. We don't know what they mean, we don't use them, and we certainly don't recognize them when we see them. So we're probably not likely to see a lot of them, and that's part of our problem. It's subtle things, but for example, in our society, we tend to say, I'm proud of you. Well, let's go back to the origin of proud, which is pride, and pride is actually a vice. You know, I mean, we don't mean that when we say I'm proud of you. We mean something good by it. But think about it. When you say I'm proud of you, who does it really have to do with? Me. If I'm saying I'm proud of you, it's about me. Somehow your thing is doing something for me. You know, I mean, I'm feeling good, you know, because what you did. I don't care about you, but I'm feeling good, you know. And there's something wrong with that. So it's very interesting. When I started doing this years ago, instead of saying I'm proud of you, I'd say to somebody, you bring me great joy. I'm telling you, you should see somebody's face when you say that to them. You could say I'm proud of you. They go, oh, thanks. You say, you bring me great joy. They stop and they look at you like you just gave them $1 million. Why? Because it's the truth. They do bring me great joy. And that joy is love. That joy is truth. That joy is, in a sense, getting a glimpse of God. That's what I'm seeing. That's fantastic. So you bring me great joy. It's a small thing, but it's a way of practicing virtue. When you're working with athletes, you bring me great joy. It starts to happen. They start to think that way. They start to use that language as well. You know, my hope someday is I could write a book called How to Achieve Zero Self-Esteem. You know, as a psychologist, they may throw me out of the APA, but you know, the problem is not a lack of self-esteem. I will challenge you that anybody who supposedly has, quote, low self-esteem has too much. Because the problem with low self-esteem, supposedly, is what? The person's so focused on themselves, they're so inwardly turned. That's their problem. If I were to turn outward and be focused on others, I'd have no self-esteem problem. And how can I do that? Again, back to this virtue of humility. Humility is recognizing I am nothing, I know nothing, I have nothing. That's not being low self-esteem or lacking of confidence. That's just the reality. If I'm standing next to God, I'm not bragging about anything. You know, at best I'm a steward, I'm the driver. You know, he gave me something. I'm just trying to do the best I can with it. I want to give it back. Matthew 25:14-30, you know, parable of the talents. So I'm just going to try to double them as best I can. That's what we're called to. But this idea, again, of self-esteem is just, you know, kind of crazy. I worked with some pro tennis players, and the U.S. Tennis Association would have this thing where they were teaching juniors. And they'd say, you know, act like you're a good player. Like, pretend you're a good player and say you're a really good player. And I'm like, okay, that'll work until the first serve comes at 150 miles an hour and then stuck in the fence behind you, and then the words don't work anymore, you know? Confidence does not come because you say, I want to have it, or somebody needs to have it, or, hey, be confident, buddy. You know, that's not going to work. What works is actually when I can return the ball almost every single time, guess what I'd have then? Confidence. Because I actually know I can return the ball. I actually have the skills, talents, and abilities to actually do it. Saying it doesn't do anything for you. It's kind of, again, a very relativistic, you know, secular idea of, you know, what the world's about, and typically it has us focused on us.